The Pharisees and Sadducees seek a sign.
Yeah.
What
And
fools?
Matthew 16. Oh, right. That's what he's going to tell us.
What fools are they?
And did you know that they seem to like that I can't get the joke out so because they don't know Jesus, so they're sad, you see. Here we are.
And
There's a
here
better
we
way of
are.
here we are.
Oh, yeah, that's very good. Then all right. So this is after
This is after, I think so, yeah. Yeah.
because it starts with
Then.
then.
Yeah, so it's a continue, like it's right, exactly.
So after they had come to Magdala.
Yes. Yes. Yes, it does seem to be that. And that is up on the Sea of Galilee, like it said. Cool.
Then the Pharisees and Sadducees came, and testing him, asked that he would show them a sign from heaven. He answered and said to them, when it is evening, you say it will be fair weather, for the sky is red. And in the morning it will be foul weather today, for the sky is red and threatening. Hypocrites, you know how to discern the face of the sky, but you cannot discern the signs of the times. A wicked and adulterous generation seeks after a sign, and no sign shall be given to it except the sign of the prophet Jonah. And he left them and departed.
He dropped the mic and left.
Right. What did Jonah say?
Well, it's the sign of Jonah. So Jonah is the guy that was in the fish for 3 days. So from what listening to teachings and pastor and different, like the sign is where Jesus died and he was buried, and it was 3 days he rose again. So there's the sign of the 3 days, I think, in the fish in the ground. The correlation between Jonah and Jesus in the future.
Hmm, okay.
That's what I understand by what he's saying.
Okay. No,
But
that's definitely a connection to draw.
because
I mean, I
so
don't think there's anything else, right? Like the first part is just explaining like the sailor's tale of like
the,
red sky in the morning, sailor's warning.
right, so that we know he's saying, right, he's saying we know how to determine signs in the sky, right? What they mean for the weather.
Right, but he's saying you can
You're a
do that.
hypocrite,
You can do that, but you can't do that with your own people.
or you can't do it to know that this is the time of Jesus, the Messiah. I think
Or
the sign of
discern
the
the sign of the times when he's saying this is the kingdom is near,
yes, I think that's what he's talking about.
because that's
That
the
there's going to be
message.
yes, and there's a change happening.
Okay.
I think that that's what he's saying.
So this should be like you can't see the warning signs in front of you.
Even though, well,
You
right, he's saying
know.
that's what he's saying, and from we know from prophecy, there's a lot of prophecy written about Jesus. So he's saying, I think he might be saying, you're not understanding what's happening here. You're not seeing what's happening, and you're asking for a sign, but there's stuff is happening right in front of you, and miracles, right?
Well, he
Healing.
said, give me a sign, and he said, look
Just look.
around, dude.
I think that that might be too what he's saying, right? I think so.
So they left and departed to go look.
Well, he left.
He
Jesus.
left?
Yeah, he left.
Oh, when
You
he
drop
left them and departed.
right.
Oh, so he knows
You
that
leave
really
them on a cliffhanger. Like,
truly was
you
a
say
mic
your
drop.
thing and then they have to ponder that because that's the last thing he said to them.
Look around.
Look around.
Good
There was
thing.
an old
Look around.
Yeah. I mean, now we wonder if it's coming near Revelation time, don't we? When we look around,
Yeah.
see
I
what's
think
happening.
it's an ever-present problem that
Yes. Yes. It's
I mean,
true.
yeah. Mm.
Hmm. I
The
know.
leaven of the Pharisees and
Mm,
Sadducees.
mm.
What's
Oh,
leaven?
that is sad, isn't it?
What is
Just joke.
leaven? The leaven is sad?
Leaven. No, well, the leaven is like yeast in bread,
Okay.
but the leaven is also the sin. It's a symbolic of the sin of the Pharisees, but
So what is
leaven
causing
the
like
sin really. The yeast, because
well the leaven of the yeast, which is the growth factor.
the growth factor exactly. Where a little bit of leaven leavens the whole group. They used to say before, right? So it's like that seeds of sin, and then it spreads like yeast, because you only put a little bit, like in the sourdough, right? You mentioned you were thinking of making sourdough, right? And then it
Not
just,
yet.
yes. So that's kind of cool. But the same, that's kind of what he's talking about, where you leave it and then it rises, right?
It just does it.
And
It has a mind of
builds
its
the
own, as
whole
we
the
say.
thing. Yeah,
But it's not, it's yeast.
it's multiplying. So it's multiplying the leaven, as in the discomfort and sin and not listening, probably.
Now, when his disciples had come to the other side, they had forgotten to take bread. Then Jesus said to them, take heed and beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and Sadducees. They reasoned among themselves, saying, it is because we have taken no bread.
So they're thinking on a physical level, right? They're thinking because they know they forgot to take the bread. So they're like, oh no, he said this because we forgot to take them. So it's kind of funny. It's really funny. But I mean, it's not like I'm not capable of doing that either. Sometimes I do that too, you know. So sorry, Lord. So let's see what Jesus says.
What did Dad say? It was like it was lonely being in the house. But
Oh, it's lonely being me.
yeah,
When he, because he's really witty, and he can he's
when you have a conversation with like a pre-thought back, you know, back thought to it, and the person that you're talking to doesn't understand it the way that you had intended.
and then yes,
It's like
exactly.
you're really just having a conversation with yourself.
And that is what my husband says. It's lonely being me.
But it does apply to certain circumstances.
It does. Maybe Jesus, I think Jesus probably felt that here in
Yeah.
this moment. Like, hey, they're thinking I'm talking about real bread. How long have they been with me? Well, he'll tell you. See when you see
Yeah,
what
I could
he's.
probably like I've read what at least 4 or 5 times where he's like he explains something and then the apostles are asking him afterwards to re-explain it and he's like, you guys still don't get it? Not yet.
So, yeah, we need help. We need extra help sometimes, don't we? Oh,
But Jesus, being aware of it, said to them, O you of little faith, why do you reason amongst yourselves because you have brought no bread? Do you not understand or remember the 5 loaves of the 5,000 and how many baskets you took up? Nor the 7 loaves of all 4,000 and how many baskets you took up? How is it you do not understand that I did not speak to you concerning bread, but to beware the leaven of the Pharisees and Sadducees?
right. Don't you understand? I'm not talking about physical bread, right?
So the reaction to his question, their reaction was survival. They reacted with fear, not only for
Mm,
survival, but they were they brought up the bread because they were insecure about how the Pharisees and Sadducees would look because they didn't bring any bread.
Maybe,
Wasn't
or
the
they thought,
fact,
yeah,
well, it wasn't the fact that they were looking for bread. He said, "Oh, you of little faith, why do you reason amongst yourselves because you have brought no bread?" They are
like why you
worried.
even, yeah,
It's like
why,
bringing like an appetizer to a party.
don't worry.
Everybody has that insecurity at some point, I'm sure. It's like, oh, I showed up without a gift to a party. That's how they responded.
Oh
And
yeah.
then in the next two verses, 9 and 10, do you not remember who you are with? You gave me um like what, four pieces of bread and I fed thousands of people. And you think I'm worried about whether you brought bread to this party, dude? You think that's my worry in this? I
Right,
I tell you time and time and time again. This is
exactly.
how I'm taking it. Like when I read this and
I
like,
think so, right. I think that's what he's saying. I do think that's what he's saying. Do you not yet understand or remember? Have you forgotten? It was only the last chapter. I mean, it was only a few days ago or whenever, right?
yeah, it must be. It's like that's a super polite way of saying like, have you guys forgotten the last like
Everything I'm
15
teaching you.
chapters? Right. Like, and they're there for all of it. But I guess it's normal to them. So to a certain extent, they'd still have their same worries, but the things that they'd be around. So
Right.
they'd be like normalized to that. But who knows? I don't know. But
Mm,
that's how I kind of see it. And there's a little bit of humor in it as well, because it's like
right.
it truly is the sheep and the shepherd metaphor playing out
Oh,
on like two different levels. Because
okay.
you have like the actual ministry that is following him,
Right.
and then you have his apostles, and
Right.
like he still has to explain it to each of them.
Oh, yes, yes. Where he's hoping that maybe the
He
apostles would at least get it.
start to think, and I hope how many chapters? There's quite a lot. I
Or,
hope at some point they can start to walk on water, if you will.
right,
Because
right,
that's
right.
what it is. I think that's what Jesus is asking them to do, is on their own accord be able to come to the same conclusions that he came to. He's building a ministry.
I think he wants the same from us, right?
Right. He wants you to be able to live the same life and do the same things that he did. But it's like at the end of the day, you're the only thing stopping that. And
Wow.
faith and fear and other things. But
I know it's a challenge for all of us, right?
but,
It is in a good way,
yeah. Then they understood that he did not tell them to beware of the leavened bread, but of the doctrine of the Pharisees. So to
Mm,
11, like to beware, why would you beware of it? And I think it's probably because there's strings attached to it, right? Is if you're gonna break bread with those people who are already
yeah, well, the doctrine, because right, they're also if they're
what they're
teaching
teaching.
doctrine, yeah, I think so, right?
So
They're
if they're teaching
teaching
incorrect things,
and maybe stuff that will,
you probably shouldn't break bread with them.
right. Oh,
Because
I see what you're.
does he not
You
bring up breaking, not in that way, but
He tells you to be aware of the leaven of bread, but of the doctrine of the Pharisees, the
or
doctrine
like
the teach. Go
when it
ahead.
says the leaven of bread, does that mean like what makes up the bread?
Oh, the leaven is the yeast. Is that what
And
you
then
mean?
the doctrine of the Pharisees and Sadducees. Because like when
The
you say
yeast.
the doctrine of the Pharisees and Sadducees, that has very little meaning. But like, what does that actually mean? It's like what the things the
Right.
Pharisees and
I mean,
Sadducees stood for and what they taught.
yes, yes. And obviously they're coming against Jesus, right? They're coming to test him, so they're causing rivalry, and they're going against Jesus as well. So they're obviously
Right.
causing discord
There's
and you know
disharmony
disharmony.
with
Yes,
intentful purpose. But hopefully a little bit of peace.
a little bit of peace everyone needs. Thank you, Jesus.